Timba drapa mi baketi maya. Timba twisa mi hipeti maya. Timba heavy load. Timba heavy load. Timba heavy load. Timba broka mi baketi maya. Timba drapa mi futeti maya. Timba drapa mi baketi maya. Timba twisa mi hipeti maya. Timba heavy load. Timba heavy load.
The third world is not poor. You don't go to poor countries to make money. There are very few poor countries in this world. Only the people are poor. When people didn't have enough to eat, when people were driven to the edge of desperation, there's billions to be made there, to be carved out and to be taken. The capitalist European and North American powers have carved out and taken the timber, the bauxite. They have taken out of these countries. These countries are not underdeveloped. They're overexploited. They're overexploited. They're overexploited. The third world is not poor. You don't go to poor countries to make money. There are very few poor countries in this world. Only the people are poor. When people didn't have enough to eat, when people were driven to the edge of desperation, there's billions to be made there, to be carved out and to be taken. The capitalist European and North American powers have carved out and taken the timber, the bauxite. They have taken out of these countries. These countries are not underdeveloped. They're overexploited. They're overexploited. They're overexploited.
Broka mi baketi maya. Timba drapa mi futeti maya. Timba drapa mi baketi maya. Timba twisa mi hipeti maya. Timba heavy load. Timba heavy load.
The third world is not poor. You don't go to poor countries to make money. There are very few poor countries in this world. Only the people are poor. When people didn't have enough to eat, when people were driven to the edge of desperation, there's billions to be made there, to be carved out and to be taken. The capitalist European and North American powers have carved out and taken the timber, the bauxite. They have taken out of these countries. These countries are not underdeveloped. They're overexploited. They're overexploited. They're overexploited.
All right. Hello, everyone. You are listening to the Glenn Lall Show on Kaieteur Radio, where the publisher of Kaieteur News, Glenn Lall, discusses the management of your wealth. I will be your operator for tonight's proceedings, and later we'll probably be joined by my colleague, Kiana Wilberg. So we'll just get right into the discussion, but let me give you some housekeeping. We are taking calls tonight on 226-7453, and we'll also be entertaining text messages and WhatsApp on 622-2222. So don't call on the cell number because I notice people have been doing that sometimes. Just send text messages and WhatsApp, and you can call us on the landline 226-7453. So we'll take your comments and we'll also take your questions. I will also be monitoring the Facebook Live for questions, so you can post your questions or comments there for Mr. Lall. Mr. Lall, over to you.
Thank you, Kemol. Good evening, guys in the studio. Good evening to you all right across Guyana and around the world. If you're listening to us, thank you. I want to begin tonight's Tell It As It Is, and let us have a frank discussion on what so many people have been calling and asking Guyana, Guyanese. Will Guyana get anything out of this oil? Will we be happy? And I sometimes don't know what to tell them, but a few of them I have said to them, if you want to be happy with your oil wealth, we have to and we must demand a renegotiation and to change those clauses, those provisions in our oil agreements. If we don't get that done, my fellow brothers and sisters, happiness will not come, happiness will not be there. I always love quotes, and a quote came to mind as I speak about happiness. And one guy puts it this way. He says the beauty of life does not only depend on how happy you are, but how happy others can be because of you. I always remember those words. We making people happy. We elect leaders to make good deals for us, so that those deals can bring in millions and billions, so that we can live a very comfortable and happy life. Is our leaders doing that? Every day that I listen to them, I am not hearing that. I am not feeling that vibe that our leaders are really working in the best interests of us Guyanese. Every day is some blame game going on with our leaders. And when I say leaders, with all our leaders in the PPP, in the PNC, in the AFC, it's all games they're playing. They're blaming this one, and this one is blaming that one, and that's the blame game they continue to preach on a daily basis. Yesterday I was reading the newspaper, and I saw a story by our Attorney General, Anil Nandalal. And when I read what Anil Nandalal said, it just makes you want to puke. Yeah. And I made a note of what he said. He was talking about the laws of Guyana pertaining to our lands, the lands that the coalition government grabbed up before they came out. And he was saying about the land that Bond got, and they switched it for $1. And he said the law states that no land, no state land must be subleased. He said no part of this land, none, you should get rid of. You must not sell it. You must not assign the interest, any interest in it, without government's approval. He said if you transfer the state land, if you transfer it, you must get government permission. Anything you do with the land, you must get permission. And he went on to say that the land deal between the coalition and some of the players, it stinks of accountability and lack of transparency. This is not my words. This is the Attorney General speaking only yesterday, talking about accountability and transparency. Not a single word you're hearing from these people about our oil blocks in which it was given away. Our oil blocks that remain still in secret. Our oil blocks, the same laws that he quoted from, sold without our permission. Not a word you're hearing about that being accountable or transparent. So, guys, I'm saying that if our leaders don't wake up and change the provisions and start running the affairs of this nation in a transparent and an accountable manner, we will not be happy. You will not get anything. So you and your children will not be comfortable. There is secrecy in every deal. There is secrecy in every aspect of government's attitude and behavior towards our resources. And I want to tell you, Guyana, we have been talking so much about oil and our oil resources. Hadn't Mr. David Granger released that Exxon contract, I would have never been here, and Guyana would have been in the dark, and we would have been continuing in the dark for many centuries to come. So I must say kudos to Mr. Granger for releasing that contract. We have so many contracts in the mining sector that are not being released. I am asking, I am pleading, I am begging our government, please release those contracts. Let us see the deals in those contracts. The people in the mining industry is making a kill, tons and tons of money. And guess what, Guyana? We have not seen any of those contracts. All the deals that are making is between your leaders and the mining sector. The leaders and the mining sector. What Guyana is getting out of these things? Nothing. So, Mr. Nandalal, if you're talking about transparency and accountability in which the coalition never displayed, I am pleading with you, sir, make sure the mining contracts are in the open so that the nation can see what they are getting and from whom they are getting. Another question that I want to touch on that people have been asking me about is, Glenn, this royalty thing. What is this royalty thing? And what is this profit sharing? And I said, you know what, let me explain a little that I know of royalty. First, guys, the word royalty, where it came from. Royalty came from the royal family. That is what I was told. Back in ancient times, before colonization, when Britain used to control Guyana and many other nations, and people wants to come and wreak a piece of our resources, they sit in England and they say, you know what, the royal family has to get their share. And that's how that word royalty came into being. And what it means in a nutshell, Guyanese, it's an amount, it's a percentage you demand for your wealth. You have your goal, and the queen says, listen, every 100 ounces, you give me 10 ounces. And I don't want to hear anything about expenses. I don't want to hear no flimsy or no Nancy story. All I'm concerned with is that if your 100 ounces come up, you must give me 10. The meaning of royalty simply spells out, it spells it out very clear. It is free from all expenses, all costs. No cost whatsoever is attached to royalty. Royalty simply means you give me the amount that we bargained for. We said, we said 5%, meaning 5 of every 100, 10%, 10 of every 100, 20%, 20 of every 100. You must get without paying a single dime. And it must come to you. And it must also come to you at no cost. And I emphasize come to you with no cost because our contract talks about royalty, 1%, some contract have. Some contract have 2% royalty, but it comes with a cost. So if you were to get 1%, that attached with a cost, meaning if you get 1 barrel out of 100 barrel oil, you have to pay the cost to carry that barrel oil where you'll be selling it. So in short, you're not getting the full royalty. You're getting part of the royalty you agreed upon. Meaning if you agree on 2%, you will not get 2% because transportation money has to come out of that. So this thing about 2% and 1%, we're still not getting that. That is not bad. Our oil deal is not bad with the royalty. It is the worst thing the world has ever seen. We have checked 130 countries' oil contracts, and none resembles Guyana. None resembles Guyana with our royalty and profit sharing. I want to touch a little on profit sharing too. So our contract is the worst the world has seen. Plus, remember you have to pay transportation costs on that. So basically we're not getting a free royalty. We have to pay costs on that. So, and the next thing people are asking about is profit sharing. Profit sharing to me is for a fool. It simply means two people get involved with a business and they're going to share the profits, half and half, or whatever percentage y'all work out. It's like me and Kemol have a business. I say, Kemol, I'm going to run Kaieteur News, and 50% of the profit you will get. So, in layman term, in people who doesn't understand business, profit sharing does not work in this world today. If you ever went into a little business with somebody, they always con you. You end up with nothing in profit sharing. But profit sharing kicks into oil contracts, and it kicks into our oil contracts because it makes the ordinary man feel good. Everybody say, yes, yes, we can get 50-50, we can share profit 50-50. But if you understand business the way I do, you will understand that profit sharing is one of the worst things you could think about. This is why many smart countries, they just settle for royalty. Give me my royalty and go your way. Do your thing. Pick your mango. How much mango you pick, you give me how much mango belongs to me. Don't tell me about profit. I don't want to hear anything about profit. I don't want to hear the mango spoil. I don't want to hear the price drop. I don't want to hear the mango, some left back. I don't want to hear them things. And it hinges on my profit. I want to hear how much mango you pick, give me mine. Let me decide whether I want you to sell it or I sell it myself. But as for profit, everybody who get involved with businesses understand, or who have a business partner understand. I myself was involved with business partners, and you don't want to know the story. It's sickening, it's sad. For years I haven't spoken to them because of the skullduggery that they do, especially when you trust them. So partner business does not work in this world today. It's a con game. It's designed to con you. And it's also designed to make you feel nice. Yeah, boy, look how much I can get. You know, our government and the opposition, all our leaders, many of them are so proud to talk about, well, okay, we only get 2% royalty. But you forget we get in profit sharing. And I'm like, which moron, how much of a moron can you guys get? I have asked I heard that crap from the oil king that gets sent home the other day. Bino said, Glenn, you forget we get in profit sharing. And I was like, not you again, not you too. And he said, well, I said, what do you mean profit sharing? He said, yes, we get in profit sharing. So I asked him the question. I said, man, you sitting at the helm of the oil department. I said, could you please tell me one country on earth, one only on earth, that has royalty and profit sharing like Guyana's contract, and they benefited from profit sharing? And he says, yes, he's going to think. So I called him back. Maybe I text him about 20 times, and he never replied to me. And all I asked him was to name me one country that benefit from profit sharing. And he couldn't. On to this day, he gets sent off, and the man never answered me until now. So my question to all my leaders who have been talking about profit sharing, to name a country that benefited from profit sharing. So guys, we got to drop that profit sharing away and don't even think about it. It is for a fool, and we are not fools. But our leaders would like to tell you and make you fools too, believing that there's so much money going to come with profit sharing. And the reason why nobody wants profit sharing in oil industries or in the extractive industry, in gold and diamond and bauxite and so, is that nobody has time to go check costs. It's like what is happening right now with ExxonMobil. We can't even begin to check the costs they have right now in bills for Liza 1, Liza 2, and the third well. We can't even begin. We ain't even begin to check the pre-contract cost from 99 to 2015, much as the billions they already said it's spent. So there you go with profit sharing. You have to check everything. So this is why people said, no, just give me my royalty. I don't want to hear anything. You just put your security guard at the gate as to how much bag mangoes come out, and you give me what belongs to me. All Guyana has to do is put a monitor on the meter that brings up the oil and see how much come up, and you know, well, here 2% or 10% belong to you. Profit sharing, forget about it. It's a dream. It's a dream, Guyana. Don't you dare put your mind on it. Like I said, it's for fools. And any leader tell you about profit sharing, you tell them that they are a set of fools. So we begin tonight, tell it as it is, and let us be frank. I have my colleague here, Kiana and Will and Kemol. Let's begin. Let's talk about something that the nation wants to hear about.
We actually had a press conference this morning by the Alliance for Change that I figure we could start the conversation off with. What has happened is that two of the senior ministers of the AFC, who were very much involved in the management of the oil and gas sector in the David Granger administration, they are no longer, well, they are not on the Parliamentary Subcommittee for Natural Resources. My understanding from Mr. David Patterson is that he will be the Shadow Minister for Oil and Gas, but he is going to be on the Public Accounts Committee. And we have former Minister of Natural Resources, Mr. Raphael Trotman. He will have a responsibility for foreign affairs and matters away from oil and gas, even though he had that portfolio before. Mr. Lall, we had asked them, why is it that two of your senior ministers who had exposure to this industry are now appear to maybe shying away from it? And they said that what they want to do is to give other persons in the party a chance to get exposure. And so Ms. Kathy Hughes, who was Minister of Public Telecommunications, she is now on the Natural Resources Subcommittee. Do you think that those ministers should have taken a more hands-on approach with regards to the management of oil, or is it wise and prudent to give the new people a chance?
Kemol, I just talk about games or politicians playing games. This is one of the games they're playing. Parliamentary committee should have had Raphael Trotman. He's the man who signed some of these oil deals. Patterson was part of the quintet with the oil deals. They take themselves out so that they cannot be questioned. You understand? They're actually hiding. But they're saying, they're using excuses. This is the game. Using excuses to put in young people. And when you go and ask the young people, the young people will tell you the same thing what Robert Prasad them saying. Well, you know, we weren't there and we can't answer those questions. You got to go ask Trotman and Patterson. It's the same thing Robert Prasad said. Robert Prasad, when you ask him about the sign away of the oil blocks, he says, well, you know, I am not there. I'm out of government now. And you got to go there and see what you can get there. And when he come back into office now, you ask him again, well, talk to us on the sign away of the block. He said, well, you know, I am not in that ministry. Somebody else in that ministry, go ask them. And this is the kind of nonsense. This is the kind of joke your leaders playing with Guyana. They're shifting blame and sifting them and say, well, it's young people, go there. This has nothing to do with young people to get experience. The oil sector, young people can't learn it. In 40 years, you can't learn it. And we're not asking them anything that they should go learn. We want Patterson and Trotman to be there because they were involved with all these deals. But they're just hiding and they're ducking and baba weaving with the Guyanese nation. All of them. Is every single one of them playing games, bro? And guess what? The supporters and the Guyanese nation is saying, oh, okay, it's right. Yeah, give somebody else. We don't want the somebody else, Guyanese. Brothers and sisters, we don't want nobody else. We want them in the right positions to answer these questions about the giveaway of your future and your children's future. Yeah.
Okay, so one of the things we did during the press conferences, we asked them about their history managing the oil and gas sector. And so Mr. Trotman spoke about the fact that they did not award oil blocks to anybody who was politically exposed during their term. And one of the things we asked them in response is, you may not have hired those persons yes, but there are also some very controversial decisions that were taken by that administration. That administration hired three separate entities to conduct reviews, or whatever you want to call it, related to oil and gas. But those three entities were also, they had also worked for ExxonMobil. And that is the UK consultant, Dr. Michael Warner, who had drafted our local content policy. Then there's the UK firm Bayface, who was hired by the AP and UFC government to review Exxon's $9 billion field development plan. And then there's the law firm, which it enjoys a 40-year relationship with ExxonMobil. That law firm was hired to revise the legislative framework in which Exxon would be required to operate. And so we asked Mr. Trotman, do you believe that this constitutes a conflict of interest? So Mr. Trotman said that conflicts of interest, they are not necessarily something you can judge on the face of it. So when you're doing your due diligence, the client in question would have to tell you whether they have had a relationship with a firm that they will be exposed to. And if they don't tell you, that's a problem. But if you find that they have had a relationship with that firm, this is Trotman's words, that they would have to then examine the situation to determine whether it is a conflict or whether it is not. Yet Trotman decided that he would place the onus more on the World Bank. All of these entities had come through the World Bank because it's a World Bank loan that funded them. So he said that what the government did was that it relied on the due diligence of the World Bank. Would you want to comment on that?
Yes, yes. It's all games again. Blaming and blaming and blaming. He's blaming the World Bank now. He's not taking any blame. This is our resources, my friend. This is our resources. He was elected as a leader to manage our resources, the people of this country resources, me and you. And you telling me that I employing people to come and look out for my people, my country, I have to take who they send to me? No, that's nonsense. That's unthinkable. You send in tainted people. You send in people who will not work in my best interest, and you telling me I have to hire them? No, I ain't buying that, and no Guyanese should buy that crap again. It's a set of crap coming out of their mouth, one after the other. Why? Man, this thing doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense what he's saying. Hold on. Let me ask this question. Did the World Bank authorize him to transfer the oil blocks? The oil blocks that the PPP gave away were transferred, and he was responsible for the transfer of it. Meaning, move the oil block out of Guyana to Canada so that they can sell it in Canada. They had to get presidential or ministerial approval. Did he blame anybody? So he gave away, he did not even tell the nation whose hands the oil blocks fall into. As a matter of fact, you know what? The coalition go in there to investigate the oil blocks. They were investigating the oil blocks. And he ought to know, should have known, that these oil blocks were handed to people who never ducked their finger in the Atlantic Ocean, who never even have a cent to buy a balahu. So he had to know, but this is all games they're playing with us. And they want us to believe in them.
In all fairness to Mr. Trotman on this issue, he also pointed out that while he had that portfolio under him, he tried his best to make sure that there was no conflict. At the time these hires were made, the portfolio had been moved out from under him and was with the Department of Energy.
Kemol, again, Raphael Trotman is an attorney at law. And it's everything they're going to look to find an excuse. Well, I wasn't there at the time when this happened. somebody else will take over. They transform me. But he knew. Raphael Trotman can't take himself out of this whole oil sector. He has been there. He has done so much and knows so much. So this crap you're telling me what you don't know and you want to blame people again? No, Guyana. No, none of us should buy that. They have to come clean and clear. I would like to have him here. I would like to have all of them, one by one or two by two, come here. And let's be frank with the nation. You must be able to withstand questions. We have so many questions for you guys. I would love to have Bharat Jagdeo, David Granger, Joseph Harmon, Raphael Trotman, Patterson, Carl. I want all of them to come here. Let's have a frank discussion as to the roles you play, so that you don't mamagai the nation. You don't throw us in any salawala. No, this nation needs to know. You guys have to come clear and clean.
Well, I'd just like to make a few points or additions to what Mr. Lall would have said. I think it's very clear, and unfortunately so, or much to my disappointment, that we are seeing a very incompetent opposition. And it's very sad that this is the quality or the caliber of people or leaders that we have leading us at the very early stages of being a new oil producing state. It's very disappointing, it's scary, and it's dangerous. If we can't have leaders in the opposition who can select the best candidates to scrutinize the operations of the government in the natural resources sector, if you cannot do something as simple as that, as selecting the right candidates to be on that team, then it tells me a lot. And it's not something that makes me feel comfortable about the future, about where this country is going. Because at the end of the day, the media is a very important agent in the transparency framework for this country, and so is the opposition. And if the opposition is weak and is prone to making a lot of excuses for what they did when they were in office, excuses for their time in opposition, excuses for their ignorance, excuses for everything. It is just baffling, and it's no longer acceptable. And Guyanese, we need to do something about this.
Thank you, Kiana. You well said. But I want to add a little piece. As much as I don't agree with you when you say that we have an incompetent opposition. No. I'm not buying into that. Our opposition was in government, Kiana. And the government now was in opposition, Kiana. They are all in the same boat, making us idiots, playing games, Kiana. They were there, and now they can't take themselves out, say, I am not there. And this one, during the PPP out of office, not a single word you heard from them about the oil sector. The only thing I recall, Bharat Jagdeo said that he is in favor of an international investigation on the oil blocks giveaway. Harmon has said so. Harmon subsequently said so a few days ago. Trotman said so. So if both parties are saying that, now I want to know when this thing will happen. When will we bring that on board? Because I will fight until I die for an international investigation on this oil sector and the oil deals, because I believe tremendous skullduggery went on with most of our political leaders and players.
quite convenient, Mr. Lall, at the time that these leaders choose to endorse an international investigation when they're in opposition, when the onus is not on them to bring in the people, the experts to conduct the investigation. So I do not think their calls are genuine.
They're not. They are not. They're just coming out to make people feel good and say, well, yeah, boy, you hear the coalition, you hear Trotman say this, you hear Harman say this, and then when Jagdev was out, you hear Jagdev say this, but now what's happening? Now is nothing. You will have nothing. You will have to stick with that deal, this scampish deal, this non-Guyana deal for life. That's hence I say, if we don't get a renegotiation of these oil contracts, my brothers and sisters, nothing is there for you. You're not going to get it. You're not going to get nothing. And the PPP doesn't want to change it, and the PNC don't want to change it, and the AFC don't want to change it. And you should read through the lines why they don't want to change it. Remember, I have learned, the very first thing I learned in the oil sector, what our company does. The first thing, they come to your country and they line the
Pockets of the politicians.
yes. And then they create chaos and confusion. And while we fight among ourselves, and right now we are actually fighting among ourselves, and that's where they want us. They want us to fight among ourselves so they can pack up each boatload every hour and leave the shores of Guyana.
Here's a question, Mr. Lall, that came in, and I suppose after you answer this, we could go on our first break. It says, kindly ask Mr. Glenn if he thinks APNU AFC is aiding and abetting the PPP secretly in these unfair deals. Why it occurred to me is that the coalition remains tight-lipped on anything oil. They aren't condemning the PPP for the oil deals.
No, it's not that they're not condemning. They are not saying a word. None of them, brother. None of them saying a word. It's like oil doesn't exist in Guyana. The entire universe is talking about Guyana and its oil, the wealth we have. A matter of fact, we carried a story a few days ago. Fortune 500 companies. There's a list of companies on the Fortune 500. Man, a ton of them want to come to Guyana. They're ready to pack up bag tomorrow to be here. The whole world talking about our oil and our wealth. And our leaders are saying nothing. Why they're not saying anything? And if they do say, they shift blame here and they shift blame there. And we, the citizens of this land, is left in between wondering, is this one? Is that one? Is all of them Guyana?
All right, let's go on our first break. We'll be back in just a minute on the Glenn Lall Show.
The third world is not poor. You don't go to poor countries to make money. There are very few poor countries in this world. Only the people are poor. When people didn't have enough to eat, when people were driven to the edge of desperation, there's billions to be made there, to be carved out and to be taken. The
Timber heavy load. Guyana, it's not timber anymore. It's oil blocks heavy load. Oil blocks broke me back, Guyana. Oil block broke me back, Guyana. That song has to change. I'm about to change it.
All right, welcome back, folks. Welcome back to the Glenn Lall Show, where we're having a discussion about the recent developments in the oil and gas sector and what your leaders are doing about it. I am Kemol King, your operator. I'm joined by Kiana Wilberg, my colleague, and the publisher, the man of the hour, Mr. Glenn Lall. I believe Kiana had a topic she wanted to discuss. Kiana, over to you.
Yes, thank you very much, Kemol. So in the media, we have a lot of stories that look at what these international institutions are saying about Guyana, their assessment about our state of affairs. And recently, the World Bank looked at where Guyana is in terms of South America. It's still noted that even with all of the discoveries that we have, Guyana is still considered one of the poorest countries in South America. And it went on to note that even if we're to get all of this oil money that the politicians are talking about, ensuring that it is able to improve the standard of living of every man, woman, and child is going to take a lot of reforms. Mr. Lall, with what you're seeing, do you think we're on that path?
With the contracts that we sign, no. With the deals we have, no. I am seeing a Nigeria. I am seeing a Senegal. I'm seeing so many nations that are living with $200 per day after 60, 70 years of oil. That's what I'm seeing here. I'm even seeing worse because Kiana, with the deal, there's nothing for us there. There is nothing for us. So the World Bank will continue to publish our names, Guyana, in the list of the poorest nation on earth. They will. The World Bank should have been fighting for us to get better deals. We're not going to get anywhere. It is as simple and straight like that. Too many, the odds are not with us. The odds are against us in the oil sector. The 2% is nothing. 1% is nothing. It's nothing. Nobody has that.
Mr. Lall, I want to take you back to a topic that you touched on earlier, which is the mining contracts. Now, many of these contracts, Trotman, the former Minister of Natural Resources, Rafael Trotman, would have said in 2019 that these contracts cannot be released because in many cases there are confidentiality clauses or provisions that are so strict, you really need the permission of the companies. Now, we find ourselves in a situation where we are a candidate member of the Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, and that body requires us to make these contracts public. Now, we have found ourselves in a situation where we have contracts that supersede international standards and supersedes our laws. How do you really think that we can be able to fix such a situation like that, and how important it is for us to correct it?
Very simple, Kiana. ExxonMobil contract, the largest contract Guyana would ever see, is in the open. Mr. Granger made it public. Why can't Guyana see those mining contracts with miners? We must see that. It's too much games going on in this land. Too much of secrecy going on in this land. Because you giving people concessions, you giving them tax breaks, and you don't want Guyana to know who is getting those concessions and tax breaks. And you don't want to know what you is getting back from all those investments we are giving them, and we are not getting anything? We should. So for them to tell us that you have confidentiality clause, ExxonMobil had confidentiality clause. ExxonMobil contract signed in stone, and we were able to see that. Kiana, all contracts should and must be in the open, so that we Guyanese must be able to see that Kevin Smith get $100 million in concessions, and when you check Kevin Smith contribution to Guyana, the man tell you lose money. Like the bauxite company. The bauxite company got over $100 million US in concessions, and all they paid was $12 million. So it's like you're taking tax dollars to fill these people's pockets. This is not an insult to us as a people, Kiana. This is beyond. This like you are treating us like dogs and animals. No. And we have to demand that these mining contracts come in the open. Why would you want to keep secrecy? Why you want to keep it secret? The only way I see you want to keep that secret is if you give your brother and your sister and your cousin and your family them deals that you don't want us to know. And taking the Guyanese politicians, their attitudes and their behavior from since Unaha to now, I would not be surprised to know that's one of the reasons why they're hiding those mining contracts from the nation. It should come out. We have to demand that. These are the kind of things we have. These are the kind of things, Guyana, we as a people have to stand up and demand. Demand that if Glenn Lall get a concession, it must not be kept secret between Glenn Lall and the minister. No. Make it public. Well, this is what was given to Glenn Lall, and this is what Glenn Lall has given us, or this is what is expected from Glenn Lall. You can't just take our land, 16 million acres of land, and put it in Kevin or Silal or Kiana hands for free. What kind of country we really running? What kind of business we really doing in this land? I hope you understand what I'm saying.
I do.
And we should be on the backbone. All right? Because your backbone will be the one that will be feeling it.
Indeed. And I think another thing that we need to continue to keep the pressure on is finding out who are the beneficial owners of these oil blocks. I know the Vice President, Dr. Jack Dio, had given a commitment to finding out who are these individuals and piercing the veil. But I'm not sure where we are with that. I think we really need to ensure that we keep the pressure up, and this is not something that was just said for, the purpose of looking good or something.
No. Let me getting to know the financial players, the financial beneficiaries of the oil blocks. I will go to my grave, and you will never know that. You will never hear that from a Mr. Bharat Jagdeo. You can only know that. You can only know that, Guyana, not from any politicians in this land. You know who you will know that from? If we have an international investigation to catch them. You can't catch, no thief man want to tell you anything. You think a thief man want to tell you. Let me ask you something. If I thief something, you think I want to tell you that I thief it?
Absolutely not.
That's right. So don't expect any politician to tell you that we will tell you about the beneficial owners of these oil blocks. No, you will not hear it from them. You will only hear it. And we have seen this. It's clear how many oil countries have got caught up. Their leaders and their families got caught up many, many years and moons after. Governments would have changed, and you had international investigation, and this is how people know that people like Isabella de Santos, she brother, president uncle, auntie, nephew, niece, sister body, and all of them involved with the money, because the money gone in them account. It ain't gone in the political players' account. But who benefits? The political players benefits. We would have carried umpteen stories like that.
One commenter says, Mr. Lall, you and your crew are doing a good job, but I think we need more people to come out and take to the streets.
Thank you.
From all parts of the country.
I thank him for that stance he's taking. We don't want to get out on the streets. We want our leaders to bring about changes so that we, me and you and every one of us in Guyana can and should benefit our fair share from our wealth, man. Our wealth. I want to share the story with you. I sat with ExxonMobil, two of their executives. One of them said to me, when I asked, I said, man, you guys don't have shame? He said, what do you mean? I said, you don't have shame to know the kind of wealth we have here, the money we have out there. Each citizen could right now walk away with $1 million US in hand right away on signing bonuses, on production bonus. That's just production bonuses, $750,000. 750,000 people. Each one of us should have been having $1 million US in we hand now. Now, right now. I say, you guys think I have no shame? This is what you guys giving us? Peanuts. And you know what the individual said to me? Glenn Lall, don't blame me. I am just one of the small guys. I wasn't involved in signing the contracts. But I must tell you that your leaders, don't blame Exxon, blame your leaders. Your leaders sign on to those things. Hence, I tell you, Guyana, we have to stand up. You have to wake up. We have to speak out and speak out loud. And do not allow this to get further. The further we allow it to go, this thing will eventually simmer down and die. It will not die as long as this newspaper and this crew, the Kaieteur News crew, is alive.
You know, Mr. Lall, that comment that you made there, it reminded me about a quote that I often hear from Trinidadian energy strategist and local content expert, Mr. Anthony Paul. He often says that when your leaders make questionable decisions, it is either incompetence, ignorance, or greed. He usually says that. And when sometimes when you look at some of the decisions being made by the political opposition or just the policy leaders of the day, it's really difficult to think that sometimes it's incompetence or greed or ignorance. It's really difficult to think it's those two.
Kiana, I so much agree with Mr. Paul and what he said there. Incompetence, ignorance and greed. I do agree that we have some of our leaders who are stupid, who are totally incompetent, who are dotish, so put it that way. But not all of them are stupid. As for greed, yes, I do believe greed is filtered in their hearts, and that's where we are. A matter of fact, that's what the individual actually said to me. They are too greedy. All they care about is themselves and that of their pockets, and hence Guyana is where we are today. You know, we carried a page 7 in which a few days ago I asked that that Robert Prasad should be dismissed forthwith. He should not be sitting, not even as a clerk in any ministry of this country, until he come out and be clean and clear to this nation as to his role and who are the players in the oil blocks. It will come out, Mr. Robert. I also called on Donald Ramatar to take away his pension. Don't give him his pension until both of them come out clear and say, listen, Guyana, this is what transpired. Because it is unimaginable. It is unthinkable. It's mind-boggling that two leaders of your land, the president and the minister at the time of natural resources, who in charge of our oil sector, to give away billions of US dollars, tens of billions of US dollars, wealth that belong to this nation, and telling this nation that y'all don't know who are the players. Come on, guys, don't do this to us. Don't do this to us. Don't do this to Guyana. Guyana do not accept this. These are the things we have to go. And if I have to go in front of their homes and demand that they come out, I will. I will.
Okay, one person wants to learn a little about how or what the effect of these oil operations offshore is having on our fishing industry. So I believe Kiana would be able to offer some insight into possible effects on the marine life there.
Well, that is a very interesting question. And to the person that has asked, I'd like to tell you that the respective ministry is not even aware of the effects. Because I'll give you an example. Right now, we are allowing ExxonMobil to dump thousands of barrels of produced water into the ocean. And I'll just explain a little of what produced water is. So when the oil companies drill deep below the sea floor to extract the oil, what comes up with it is water, and this water is very salty and it's very hot. Now, when you take that water out, international best practices dictate, and this is according to the World Bank, that this salty, hot water that's coming up with lots of minerals that you don't know about is supposed to be re-injected into the Earth's surface. Instead of it being re-injected, ExxonMobil is dumping this water into the ocean. Now, it has permission to do this for Liza Phase 1. It has permission to do this for Liza Phase 2. And it has permission to do this for the Payara project that they're now steaming ahead with. Now, can you imagine what sort of impact that is going to have when all of that starts to build up over time? Before this water is even dumped into the ocean, international best practices also dictate that a study is supposed to be done on the toxicity of the water. And if it is determined that the minerals, the heat, the saltiness of it is not going to be too much of a risk to the marine environment, well, then permission can be given for it to be dumped into the ocean. Now, no study was ever done for Liza Phase 1, Liza Phase 2. In fact, the environmental permit for Payara states that the company can dump the water until a study is done. So they can dump the water, and when the study is finished, is already being reviewed, then they will determine, well, okay, let's look at the feasibility of re-injecting the water. Now, what sort of damage would be done from Liza Phase 1 and Liza Phase 2 and the water that you would have dumped in the meantime from Payara? So we don't know at this point in time.
I'll answer you this way, Kiana. What kind of damage will be done? you now doing a study as to what this produced water going to do to us. And you allowing the people them to dump it. You know what will happen? We will all die. We will all die slowly. And as we dying, then they will come and say, you know what? Well, this produced water that's coming up with the oil, throwing back into the ocean, is deadly. That's what they'll tell you when we all die. I am told that fishes, as they dump that water, you guys produce water, comes up with, like Kiana said, with the oil. And it separates the oil from all and it comes with chemicals. And that water is being dumped in the ocean. It kills all the fishes nearby. And as far as that can go, it kills everything. So don't be surprised when they start kicking out there. We have to start importing fish because you will have no fish. And that will not only affect us here, it will eventually affect as far as Trinidad if they don't curtail this thing. Like Kiana said, they were supposed to capture that produced water and put it back in the basin where the oil is coming out from. But instead, they just dump it there. And we don't know, we don't have a clue how dangerous that can become, or that it is right now as we use the water, as we breathe the air, and as we live day to day.
And just to add to that, Mr. Lall, very quickly, because I know time is against us. I recently had the former head of the Environmental Protection Agency here, Dr. Vincent Adams, and he revealed to us, and this is going to be published in a story by Kaieteur News tomorrow, so you can get the details in that. He was explaining that the water that is being dumped into the ocean is actually increasing the temperature around the FPSO in the environment.
Wow.
at significant levels. And it's definitely going to have an impact on the marine environment. So he is completely alarmed. And because of what he knows is taking place with Liza Phase 1, he was advocating that Payara should have the technology to re-inject the water. And ExxonMobil was completely against it because the technology is going to cost them $300 million US. So Dr. Adams was saying, in other words, what ExxonMobil is telling us is that the life, the health, and the environment of Guyanese people is not worth $300 million.
Perfectly said. Perfect. They don't care. They don't care about us. And I am so happy that we are spotting these things now, and we don't wait 20 and 30 years from now, in which half of Guyana can be moving like a polio. What do you call it? Or living with polio, or living hop on a drop, or want to know, or half of Guyana become cancerous, and then we want. Here's what's happening to us: is some disease come here? No, these are the kind of things that we have to safeguard. But the man who was safeguarding us, Vincent Adams, he was sent packing.
And it's especially daunting when you think of the Exxon leaders here in Guyana, the disingenuity when they say things like their country manager, Alastair Routledge, who said, it will not have an effect. When no study was done, he has the audacity to go on camera and say it will have no effect. We have a...
he has passed Guyana. He has passed us. They treat us like nobody. You know, this thing is so worrying, and so that we have to wake up, Guyana. You guys have to wake up. They're coming out of from nowhere and poisoning us and tell us, no, nothing will happen. I want him to stay and live here, bring his family and live here like us.
We have a comment here from someone saying, I think Vice President Jack Dio should be stripped of the title champion of the earth. How can he allow this to go on? Well, we know that Mr. Jack Dio was awarded that title because of his stewardship of the environment. Now we're going in the opposite direction.
That's a beautiful. That's a beautiful thing he
And
says.
that's very that's quite a comment because it was Mr. Jagdeo who led the entire low carbon development strategy program, and I would have expected a tougher stance from him on the matter of flaring,
Yes.
which releases thousands of, well, not thousands, hundreds of toxic chemicals that pollutes the air. And it's even going on until now. We're just a few days shy from ExxonMobil flaring offshore Guyana for a year. And that's over 11 billion cubic feet of gas.
Kiana, let me add a piece to you. You're talking about vice president should be more involved because he's champion of the earth about pollution. Kiana, with flaring, how it's dangerous, with pollution that's taking place now, and you hear nothing from your political leaders, Guyana. Guyana, you're hearing nothing from your political leaders. Is that telling you something? Is that a message? They are not saying anything? It means that they will be doing you much more to come, Guyana, and they will not say a word. You know why? Because they're in bed. They're bedfellows. They're sleeping together. They're knocking glass together. They're drinking wine together. They're dining together. And what me and you doing? We got to drink we bush rum and drink we Banks beer and we El Dorado rum if we don't stand up and demand our rightful share. What else you have there?
I think we've actually come to the end. Okay, let's continue the discussion.
Don't stop it, man. It's me radio station. Don't stop it. Don't do that.
Okay.
So we're continuing the discussion
Yes,
because it's very lively. We know that it's normally an hour, but we're going to continue because this is a subject matter that is really important to not
Yes.
just this generation, but to future generations.
Correct.
So
Well said.
we hope that you are, going to continue to participate in this discussion because what we're dealing with is about the protection of our patrimony, Guyana.
Correct.
So we hope that you continue to send in your comments. And don't forget, if you'd like to call us and be part of the program, share your comments on air, you can make contact with us on
226-7453.
and the cell phone number that you can send us some questions on. That's
622-2222.
Okay.
You have a call coming in? Okay. So one person sent in a question. They want to know about who is providing security offshore. I believe they're asking about who is monitoring.
Oh, that's a good question.
That's a very good question.
That's a very, very good question. Now, there are two authorities that are in charge of providing security for Guyana, where the FPSO is concerned. One, the Guyana Revenue Authority. They have responsibility to ensure that they collect the receipts of all the oil that is being transferred from the Liza Destiny to another vessel that is nearby or that comes nearby to collect the oil that is sold to them. So they have to collect that little paper that says, okay, yes, exactly 1 million barrels was transferred from the Liza Destiny to this other vessel, and they keep that so that they can have a proper record in doing the computations for the taxes and the royalty collected. So that's on that part. Then you have the National Bureau of Standard, the Guyana National Bureau of Standard, and they're responsible for ensuring that all of the calibration and the metering systems and what's not, nothing has been tampered with, that all of the tests, everything is quite okay. And so we have those two officers that are supposed to be there. Now, what is really significant is that since all of this has started, we have not heard a peep from either of these authorities to say, well, this is what we have observed thus far from ExxonMobil, or we continue to be the gatekeepers for Guyana. We don't know anything from these two authorities. And Kaieteur News has tried several times. Up to recently, we tried to make contact with the Bureau of Standards to find out what is it that they have been doing, what type of training they have been getting involved in, because indeed this area is new to them, and we've been getting the royal runaround.
Kiana, let me add a piece to that question. Who's checking? Who's the gatekeeper? Wow, this is very tricky. Very tricky. I hope that we are not putting cat for watch milk. Knowing oil companies, what they do, how they corrupt every single people. Every single people. And if they can corrupt leaders, what about 2 or 3 customs officers? What about 2 or 3 the Standard Bureau officers? These are little guys. You understand what I'm saying? This is not how you protect your wealth. How developed countries does it is to put a cable from there and bring a television straight to the middle of Stabrook Market Square there, so that Guyana can see every gallon that comes up there. So we don't have to blame custom officers for taking bribes, or a minister to take bribe, or the president taking bribe. No. And Kiana, how much does that cost? Little or nothing. Little or nothing. So I find it very difficult. I find it just nonsensical that this, something simple as that, put a padlock on a door. You ain't putting a padlock on the door, but you go in and a padlock for $500, but you go in and borrow $10 million to build one bridge and to fix one little trench. You know, this is what, I don't understand how foolish our leaders can be, but I don't think that they are foolish. I think they're just playing games, like I just said. If your political players are in bed with the oil people, then we are all doomed. We are all doomed, Guyana.
One person would like to know, I believe this person is interested in finding out how Guyanese can get more involved for themselves in the oil sector. They want to know about apprenticeship, if there is something like that to bring locals on board in the oil and gas.
That's a lovely question. Kiana can answer that question. That has to do with training.
Yes.
All parts.
All right, let's take this call.
All right.
That has to do with training.
Hi, caller. Caller, are you on the air?
Yeah, good night, Glenn.
Yes.
A quick one. Now, being that the key to this is getting the people mobilized, because you just released some information in terms of contracts, which you said it's so highly profiled that we gotta ask ExxonMobil to open it. Now, ExxonMobil and the team own Guyana. How could you get the people mobilized in terms of demanding that it open? This is the question.
Could you go that again?
What open?
What are you saying in terms of getting what open, sir?
When I just speak upon the contracts, he said that the contracts that signed with ExxonMobil, they're saying that it is so high, they're so highly confidential that the Guyanese authority, whomever, if it's the PPP, the APNU, the AFC, whoever, they got to ask ExxonMobil to open it. So they got to go into a negotiation with
Yes, I got
ExxonMobil.
you. I got you.
Now,
Thank you.
my question is,
Thank you. I got you.
is getting the people mobilized now to demand it open.
I got you, bro. Thank you. I got you clear. Basically, he's saying that, you know, this oil contract deal stinks, and
How do we get
how do we get it? And I agree with him. If we continue talking and we're not going to get anywhere, that's the only other alternative, is to take the placards to your political leaders home and demand that they get up, that they don't sit in a chair comfortably and quietly without them getting out there and tell ExxonMobil. Like what our good friend and neighbor, Mr. Kaieteur from Trinidad and Tobago, that man tell them plain. He said, no. He said, and let me repeat this, he said, any contract that benefits one party only can never be a contract. And this is the contract we have here. We have a contract, all the contracts signed in the oil sector is only benefits the oil company. So we should not sit down and allow that to happen. Thank you guys for that thing. And
Yes.
let me get back to answering that question the guy talked. Kiana will help me with it. He talked about training.
Yes.
How we can get involved. In many countries, right, oil companies give countries money to train locals, and they give them money in the millions of US dollars
Yes.
to train the local people, so that you can make them up to speed. You can bring them up to speed so that they can supply the demand and the needs of the oil companies. You know what they give Guyana? They give Guyana candy money. So they're not only giving us candy money, they don't even tell us that, you know what, prepare yourself, because in this sector, this, and this got to be done. And we will be needing your input, right, into this sector. But they're not doing that. You understand? So all this has to change. Kiana, you want to pitch it?
Yes, thank you very much for that start, Mr. Lall. You know, Kaieteur News has been at the forefront of many issues like these. And for this particular one, we would have examined several local content policies. And I'm really eager, like the rest of my colleagues here, to see what is going to be put in place in the local content policy and the local content law to come under the PPP to ensure that the oil companies contribute significantly towards getting Guyanese involved. And I'm just going to give you two examples of what Ghana does. Now, in Ghana, if the oil companies cannot find someone to be a manager at a particular position, Ghana requires you to bring in an expert or a foreigner within a particular time, and you must train 2 or 3 Ghanaians to take over that position. And by next year, they want you to train 3 more. And then they want to see you elevate that executive level of having Ghanaians part of the operations, not just as the cook or the cleaner, but they want to see them take over at the executive level. Now, that's just one aspect of what Ghana does to ensure that their people are part of the sector. Another thing that they do is they have a fund that oil companies must contribute to. And part of this money is given to locals who have business ideas. They want to start up something to supply the oil industry. Part of that money goes to helping that company start up that business. And that business now gets a whole lot of incentives, because obviously you're now starting up. You're going to need to get that advantage to build up. And if foreign companies want to be part of bids or win bids in the sector, it is required that they must partner with a local. So these are all different mechanisms. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We just need to look at countries that have been able to be successful, see how they've been able to do it, and take the examples that are going to be useful for our Guyana context.
Well said. Beautifully said.
Kaieteur News even proposed some of the
Yes.
provisions from the Ghana policy, but none were used.
Yes.
A matter of fact, they removed it. The coalition brought in people to remove policies, provisions in which Guyana was to benefit, in which locals would have benefit. They removed those provisions and put in provisions that in which oil companies benefit.
You know, Mr. Lall, one of the callers who just came on just now was talking about how we mobilize Guyanese, and we get a lot of compliments on Kaieteur News about how great we're doing, and the newspaper has done a great job fighting corruption in the past. But I really think that this is an issue that Kaieteur News cannot do alone, and time after time, Kaieteur News is putting out information, but it seems as though the public does not want to mobilize. What do you think?
It's not that they don't want to mobilize. Is that, like I said before, writing all these things in the newspapers, not many people can afford a newspaper when the day comes. And you have some people who can afford the newspapers, don't read the newspapers. And if they do read the newspapers, they don't understand the language in the stories. This is why I have decided to say, let us come on the radio and let us be frank. Let us talk to the people one-on-one and in simple languages so that they can understand. All what we have said here, we would have reported in the last 5 years on them.
Okay, we have a call coming in.
Hello?
All right. Hello, caller. You're on the air.
Yes, sir. I was saying that only 1/8 of the people of the population knows about oil, or even less. We read in newspapers all the time, and the guy was saying to mobilize people. We can't mobilize nobody at this point in time because the government is sharing out a lot of benefits to nurses and the $25,000, and it's very, very tough now to mobilize anybody. When that money is being shared out and everything gone to normal is back, then the people will realize what we're speaking about, oil. That's all I want to say.
Thank you.
But
Thank you.
a very good job.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you. We don't want to mobilize anybody, bro. We want to educate the people. As to the government sharing out pittance here and there, 25,000 here and $20,000 there, I want you to know, brother, that if we had gotten a good deal, each citizen should have been getting $25,000 a day. And it doesn't have to come from the government as if it's a handout. It should have been coming from our own wealth. But the way how the government going about giving these handouts, you look like if it's a party giving you. Party doesn't give you nothing, bro. It's our own wealth they're taking and sharing it. But that same sharing, had we gotten proper deals, they should have been sharing at $25,000 an hour or per day. Thanks to call, though.
Mr. Lall, if I can just add, it's very interesting that you have two callers who are basically hitting home at a point that many of our Guyanese don't understand much about the oil and gas industry. And I just want to add a perspective. I was part of I was a participant at the Energy on Spotlight on Energy conference that's usually held in Trinidad and Tobago. And I heard the Minister of Energy Mr. Franklin Can. He said that it is the government's job, I just wrote it here, it's the government's job to let the people know what they deserve from their resources. And when the government is failing on its responsibility to let you know what your resources at this point in time, what we've been able to negotiate on your behalf, what are the challenges that we're facing, it leaves you in the dark. When you are in the dark, that's how they're able to do their backroom deals and basically funnel the wealth into their pockets, because you're blind and you're ignorant. They're not telling you anything. They're benefiting from your miseducation. And the government, it's very sad that Kaieteur News has to be not only the eyes and ears of the public, but also helping to do what the government should be doing, which is educating Guyana. From the time we found oil, the APNU should have been on a mass education project to inform the nation of what oil is all about, what we have out there in simple terms, and we've had none of that.
Well said.
And there's a reason why. If you look at what happened in Nigeria, by the time they were ready to talk about oil, more than half of the population is in extreme poverty. And by the time you look at Angola, when they were ready to really take a look at oil, billions of dollars in oil money gone to the Santos and the family and the friends.
Kiana, let me add to that. Just a few days ago, we carried a story in which a firm, a foreign entity, invested 30 million US dollars in Kaieteur block, buying in some interest in the Kaieteur block. The same Kaieteur block that Robert and Donald Ramatar gave away. A foreign company just yesterday, just a few days ago, invested 30 million US. Whose hands that $30 million gone in? That's the point. And we are only talking about that 30 million US for just a Kanchi piece of the Kaieteur block. I am not talking about 50% sold to Exxon. How much Exxon paid to them? Only God and them know. I hope and pray that this nation will know very soon whose hands all those money land in. You can help me, and you can also pray with me so that we know.
Do we have another call coming in? All right. Hi, caller. You're on Kaieteur
Hi,
Radio.
good evening.
Good evening.
I am enjoying your program.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Glenn, a very good night to you, sir.
Thank you.
Hot topic, very important topic, a topic that must be addressed, and I want to thank each of you for your boldness and the way you explain and the way you address this unapologetically. I think it needs to happen. I also want to say that people don't like to be kept accountable, and that is what you guys are doing. You're holding the government accountable for the wealth of the country. The fact that no one came on your program yet to even defend what some might want to call accusations is because accountability is a very troubling thing. I listened to your program. I listened to all the facts presented. But what I would like to ask each of you is, how long are we going to carry on with presenting facts and calling on people to come? What is the next step? If oil and gas is what is going to make the livelihood of everyone in this country better, and is being addressed from this forum, and it is not making a stir like we would expect, well then another step has got to be taken. I believe that something more drastic has got to be done, And soon, because before we know it, behind everybody's back, agreements are going to be signed again, and everything is going to be sealed and set, and it will just go on like that. And so maybe you can shed some light on that. But I believe that you have received a lot of support, and that's a very good thing. And continue the good work.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you. Thank you. Wow, you said a mouthful. The next step, you know, caller, let me say this. I don't know, I don't think any one of us know what tomorrow holds, what tomorrow brings. So to talk about our next step or what is in store, I'm sorry, sir, I can't answer that question. But I do believe that every day that goes by, we do what we were sent here to do. And that's my belief is that what we were sent here to do, we do it on a daily basis. That's my answer to that. What tomorrow holds, I don't know. What tomorrow brings, I don't know. What I'll be doing tomorrow, I don't know. What I do know, I'll be praying for all Guyana.
Okay. We're coming down to 9 o'clock and we don't have any further questions.
All right, so what else do you want me to talk about?
I think we'll take the closing.
Somebody
comments.
said if Glenn wants a few minutes, let him pay for the time. Okay.
No, but it is sad. It is sad to know that, you know, all Guyana is getting is nothing. You know, when there's so much for us, you know. There's so much.
Yes.
Mr.
Yeah.
Lall, I don't want to interject, but for listeners, you know, we would normally have our editorial meetings. You know, sometimes it would go an hour to 3 hours, depending on the topics of the day. And Mr. Lall was just talking about that earlier today, about what we're getting. So, Mr. Lall, I'd appreciate it if you could share with our listeners this evening the example you gave about those who would say we're getting something, but we're actually getting nothing. Do you remember the example?
No, which one are we talking about?
When you spoke about $500 on $500
Yes.
increase on Kemol's salary.
Okay. Oh, the topic was you have people who are saying and leaders who are saying that yes, we will get something. We will get something. And I told the staff, I said, of course we will be getting something. There is something. But what is the something, Guyana? Here, what is the something? And I told one of the staff, next month, $500 is going to be increased on your salary. I said, that is something. Well, that's the example I give to them when they talk, to leaders when they talk about we will get something. $500 on increase on your salary per month is what? It's an insult to what a real increase should be. In the case of our oil and salary, is two different things.
Yes.
Salary depends on how much profit I make here. And if I'm greedy, I want to give him 500 or 50,000. But in the case of our oil, our wealth, we should not be treated like a dog or like a cat, where you just throw a piece of the bone that you suck. No, and that's where we are, Guyana. They are throwing the bones, what they suck, to us. We should be demanding our share. And our share is a lot of money. We should have been living better than the people in Dubai now as we speak. And I am not saying that from my own wisdom. People in the industry have told me this. They have said it very clear.
Yes.
Glenn Lall, what are you guys doing? What are you doing? Lots of money. But our leaders are turning a blind eye Not a word, not a single word. 6 years, massive oil. And what are you hearing from your leaders? Nothing. The money we have, the money we could have gotten from Starbuck Block alone could have made Guyana bigger than Dubai. But instead, we will all become a Dubai.
Thank you all for listening to us on the radio and joining us on the Facebook Live. We really did have a fruitful discussion tonight.
Yes.
So please join us
Monday.
on Monday again, where we're going to give you another zesty discussion. So without further ado, I am Kemol King.
And I'm Kiana Wilberg.
Glenn Lall, please join us Monday, 7:20, so we can continue this frank discussion. We want to help. We want to make sure you get a fair share, your share of your own thing. Have a good night.
Good night.
The third world is not poor. You don't go to poor countries to make money. There are very few poor countries in this world. Only the people are poor. When people didn't have enough to eat, when people were